Hello, my name's Rachael Wilding, and I'm delighted to be hosting The Voices, talking all things cars, racing, and green power. With me today is Ryan Trutch, founder of Pole Position, and Gareth Box, head of technology from the British School Al Khubairat, Abu Dhabi. So, Ryan, lovely to meet you. I wonder if we can start by you introducing yourself and your history in the UAE.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Ryan Trutch. I've been in the UAE 44 years now,
Long
which is a
time.
long time. Yeah. I've been involved in motorsports for 35 years, had multiple businesses before, worked at Dubai Autodrome for a period of 10 years, and done some work with the Emirates Motorsports Federation as well. Been here a long time.
Definitely. And Gareth, I wonder if you could just briefly tell us your background?
Yes, of course. Not been in the UAE quite as long as Ryan. So this is my 11th year.
Long enough as well.
Indeed,
Yeah,
yeah.
not too bad. So I've worked at a couple of schools now in the UAE, and I'm now the head of technology at the British School Al Khubairat.
Okay, thank you. So tell me, Ryan, the gap in the market, there's always new innovative things coming into education. Where did you see Green Power and obviously pole position? How were they able to support education and racing coming together?
So I think I saw the gap in the market mostly when I was during my tenure at Dubai Autodrome, when I used to manage the karting circuit, and we used to get approached by schools all the time that wanted to interact with motorsports and have that STEM learning activities. During my time there at the Autodrome, we did a lot to develop grassroots karting, which is now thriving. Um, but then I decided to leave the Autodrome and start Pole Position, and I thought, what can we do as Pole Position to help grassroots motorsports? I saw Green Power as a really cool initiative to kind of introduce to schools and do that here in the UAE.
And talking about that, actually, before we started recording, we were talking about this is not a new program. It's maybe new to the UAE, but it's not a new program. And Gareth, you've actually had experience before, correct?
Yes, that's right. I think it started in the UK in around 1997,
Okay.
so
That's
somewhere
correct. Yeah,
around there.
yeah.
And I was involved for about 10 years running this project at a couple of state schools in the UK. And then obviously there was a bit of a gap when I first moved out to the UAE. And now we've had a couple of years now. I've been able to sort of get the project going again.
And before we delve into it, I mean, give us that one sort of minute elevator pitch. What is green power? I mean, what does it bring to a school?
It's a STEM learning activity originally designed around motorsports, but it's also more aligned with today's technology and requirements of EV and sustainability rather than just an out and out motorsports initiative. So I think, bringing it into schools, it's got all that STEM team building activities that can really benefit kids in the younger years.
And it is such a priority at the moment when we look at what the KHDA, ADEC, etc., are looking at Dubai 33.
Absolutely.
It's all about sustainability agenda, about that big picture thinking. And do you see that on the ground when you're using the program?
Yeah, absolutely. It ties into so many things that we're trying to do as a school, like you say, with sustainability, pushing the STEM subjects within school as well. But we're also able to tie in subjects like business. We're also able to tie in skills that they're developing in English and in history. So it's becoming a very widely hitting project where you don't just need to be someone who wants to drive a car or a fan of F1. You can have or apply skills from almost any subject within school.
So it's far more than just a car. It really is
Absolutely.
about the
Yes.
team
Yeah.
around the
It is.
car, shall
Yes.
we
It
say?
is. Yes.
And what type of roles, when you automatically think of a car and a kit car and green power, and, talk us a little bit more about all those different roles around just that one person driving the car.
Yeah, I mean, from a motorsport side, obviously there's different elements within the team. There's 12 kids on a team. There's two which are drivers. Then there's some which are building the car. There's some which are team leaders. Some which are doing sponsorship and marketing. But probably Gareth could probably speak a bit more about that on how he integrates it into his
But
school as well
but
with
so many real life
absolutely, yes,
opportunities, of
absolutely.
genuine situations that they would find in industry outside of school, correct?
Correct, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Gareth?
Yeah, and that's what we found. Students were coming from different subject areas and getting involved. It wasn't just our design and technology students, it was students like Ryan's already mentioned, maybe some of the business students were getting involved, or students who were interested in looking at sponsorship or marketing. We had some art students get involved to look at some of the branding and how to build that brand identity around the race team. So it is a project that allows students who perhaps don't have any interest in racing actually get involved, and that helps mirror the real world. In terms of a race team, you don't just have people interested in driving. There's a massive team in the background, and this gives students a taste of those sort of elements.
Which is fantastic. I mean, with any new project, there's always challenges. What
Absolutely.
were some of the big challenges of bringing a really well-known brand into the UAE for education?
So it was the challenge was bringing different stakeholders together. Once I'd made a decision to support this as a pole position initiative to help build an ecosystem of motorsports and development through automotive sectors as well. It was bringing together different stakeholders, so the schools, government ministries, and then commercial partners. So I think we've been very grateful to the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, who have kind of championed it from year one. We had a lot of discussions with them, and it was one of His Excellencies that works within the ministry that had done something similar as a kid himself. So he saw the value in it. He kind of championed it. They've been very helpful in supporting the program in the first couple of years. And now we're getting some more traction with other government ministries. Hopefully, the Ministry of Education will come on board in the future. Yeah, now that we're getting some more traction now. But the challenge was bringing all of those stakeholders together initially.
And I suppose whenever we look at things that come from a different country into the UAE or a different, country abroad, do things need to adapt? We're in a different climate, we're in a different culture space, etc. Has there been an adaptation to it, bringing it into the UAE, or is it identical to what it would be in the UK?
So probably Gareth can speak a bit on that, but in terms of the climate, that's a little bit of a challenge because they have to build the cars starting in November, and then we have to have a race before it gets too hot. So that's the only challenge on I see, and major change. But perhaps Gareth might be able to speak a bit on that compared to his previous experience.
Yeah, I mean the climate was the biggest one, because not just for it being hot on race day, the students have to learn how that impacts things like the heat impacting the batteries, the motors, and because it's an endurance race, those are significant factors within that. Apart from that, the because F1 is such a part of the culture, particularly in Abu Dhabi, and the whole of the UAE, I think it was naturally picked up very quickly. So I don't think there's any significant culture shifts or changes required. It slots in quite nicely.
And I think everything that we do, we all know that we have to adapt with the heat. And,
Yeah.
again, it's bringing it back to that really genuine real life experience rather than just a gimmick as such, I
Absolutely.
suppose.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about implementation in a school. Say that we are ready to go. How does it actually work? From having that green light, bringing pole position on to bringing the car into the school or the parts or selecting a team. I mean, if we take it from your point, first of all,
Yeah.
Ryan, and then bring it into actual day-to-day school, how does this work? How does the implementation happen?
So, I mean, first of all, it was a challenge to get connected with the schools, but we first reached out to GEMS Education, and we supplied them with the initial 10 kits, and they kind of went with that to implement that in 10 schools. From there, it's grown organically. And what we're trying to do is order kits during the summertime, so we can get kits here via sea freight and save some money on the kit logistics, and then implement it in the schools from November. And then it's really up to the schools how they introduce it to the kids. Do they do 1 hour a week, or do they do a more condensed course over the period of a month or something like that. So it's really then up to the schools on how they implement it in the schools. But we provide all of the schools with almost like a seminar where we teach the teacher on how to teach the kids and how to implement it in schools.
And I think that is important. We all know that school culture and communities are incredibly busy. There's always so many different enrichment opportunities. So,
Right.
having the fact that you can tailor it a little bit within your school setting must be highly appealing. How did it go at the British School of Al Khubairat?
Yeah, I mean, the adaptability of this project is what suits us really well. Last year, which was our first year, obviously in the UAE for this competition, we picked up the competition quite late, so we only had 5 weeks to prepare. So we were partnershiped with Yaz in Schools. They supplied us with a kit car that came from Ryan. And in the space of 5 weeks, the students were able to build, test, and develop an entire racing team ready for
Wow.
race day. This year, we've obviously got a bit more time. So we've launched it as a CCE, so an after school club. So we meet 1 hour a week, and the team starting it in October, running through to the race day in April. That's more than enough time to actually run it as a 1 hour a week club. So, as Ryan said, you can do an intensive probably over a month, or you can run it weekly. Both systems work.
Which is incredible. And I think, like I said, there's so much scope for enrichment in the UAE in terms of within education and within schoolings. What about university? Or is it really just a school program?
No, so the Greenpower program does actually have three categories of kits. So you've got a kit which is for 9 to 11 years old,
Okay.
and then the kit, so it's the middle age that we run at the moment is 11 to 16, which we're focusing on at the moment to get enough traction with that. And
Yeah.
then there is a university program as well from 16 to 22. So we're really focused on that middle group at the moment, trying to get enough traction, and then we will expand it to the other age groups.
Which is really exciting to hear,
Yeah.
definitely. And I mean, coming back to the students that have participated in this, do you see changes in their confidence or their critical thinking? It's always a sort of phrase that we use in education. How, past building the car and having the race, what do you see with the students?
The reason I like it is that they're doing all of the learning we try to build into lessons. That the learning happens without the students realizing, particularly critical thinking, being adaptive, problem solvers, and having confidence and teamwork during the actual race weekend or the race day. Once the car's on track, the teachers can't be involved. So when
Okay.
problems happen, when things go wrong, the students are on their own. Now, obviously, I'm on the sidelines, but they're on the ground fixing the car and working it all out. So from that point of view, that is them demonstrating those skills. In the build up to it, it's you start seeing students who, this is a new exciting project. And along the way, you start seeing characteristics come out. So you
Mm.
start seeing natural leaders, so they can demonstrate leadership and develop leadership. They have arguments along the way, so they actually learn how to communicate, how to talk to each other, how to problem solve in that sense. And then you start seeing students finding for themselves an area that they're particularly interested in. So whether it is the business, whether it's the mechanics, the engineering, whether it's the driving, you start seeing them find a passion within the project, and they sort of then start honing their focus on those areas. So you get students who are an all-rounder and then those specialisms as well. So it works really nicely.
And almost giving, we all talk about work experience within school, but this genuinely is giving a flavor of something that they could then pursue as a passion or even a career, correct, Ryan?
Absolutely. The Green Power report, which come to us annually, proves that there is a crossover from Green Power, and some of those students are now actually F1 engineers in today's world. So,
Amazing.
which is fantastic. So, yes, there is really a nice development for the kids, but it catches them at an early age, gets their interest, and it can really put them on a career path.
So it really could be part of a bigger long-term strategy, getting children involved in you've obviously had a wealth of experience within racing at all different
Yeah.
levels. This is another opportunity for families, for children, for young adults to be able to access something that is often just seen on the TV, really, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's a great program.
So the next generation of engineers or drivers, we could really find if they haven't gone down the karting route, which is obviously one opportunity,
Mhm.
this could then sort of help them to pivot in an interest.
Absolutely. I think uh, this program really brings the interest to the kids. Some of the kids do go into karting themselves from this program, but it really just gets the interest at an early age, so they can really think about what career they want to do in future. But it's fantastic.
No, definitely. I mean, and I think, we were sort of surveying a few children before, and they were like, it felt like an unobtainable situation being involved in motorsport. And so it's great to see things like this that might be able to harness that interest. I mean, have you seen an increase in interest in the sort of ECA at Al Khubairat?
Yeah, yeah. The first year there was quite a buzz about it, obviously, but we had to move very quickly. So we had a full team, but this year we've actually oversubscribed. So we've got more students than what we can actually really fit into a team. That allows us to explore other opportunities, but the interest is definitely there. And I think once you have that first season through and students can see it's a tangible object, it's a project with all of these other aspects, and we actually now work on the car in the middle of our school atrium. So the car is
Amazing.
permanently on display. When they work after school on the car, it's fully in display in the middle of the school so that people can walk past, they ask the students what's going on. That then drives interest with other students as well. So I think this is the start of that sort of momentum as we're going forward now.
Just to touch on that, that's a great problem to have, and just to point out, every school can have multiple teams
Yeah.
within the Green Power program.
So
So
it
if you're oversubscribed, you can have two, three, four, five, six
You
teams.
literally could have a house, with all
Absolutely,
the house systems, you could have a
absolutely,
car
yeah,
per house,
Yeah.
yeah,
almost doing internal before going external, which would be
absolutely, yeah,
incredible,
yeah, yeah.
definitely. Why is electric mobility such an important part of the program?
So obviously, there's been a major shift in automotive technology, stepping away from ICE engines, going to electric vehicle propulsion. I don't believe that electric vehicles will be the ultimate solution in the future. I think there's going to be a mix of hybrid and ICE engines with electric power. But I think it's fundamental to educate the kids on new technologies and ways of propulsion in this day and age.
And would you agree with that, Gareth?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Ryan. I think long term, it's probably not going to be where Motability sort of ends up in terms of electric power. But it's where the current technology is. It's where a lot of development is actually happening. A lot of the students' parents own electric vehicles, so it's nice to actually see a student-friendly version, something they can get their hands into and actually explore and
And
understand.
understand a bit more,
Yeah,
right?
and it
Absolutely.
ties in with the sustainability. If you compare it to, we talked about go karting. If you compare the carbon footprint of a go kart compared to these vehicles, it's light and day in the difference. So you can already start to have those comparisons and conversations and look at how that then matches out into the real world onto the bigger scale.
No, absolutely. And I mean, long term vision for green power and pole position, where do we see it in 3 years, 5 years? I mean, what would you like for it?
So I mean, look, Green Power is run globally.
Yes.
They've done a great job. There's tens of thousands of kids that compete globally. There is there's a 40% uptake in females participating across the globe. Um, we are licensed to run it in the Middle East, so we would really like to kind of move it across the Middle East to other regions, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman, and get other schools from the region involved. So, yes, we've started in the UAE, which I think is a great first step, but we would like to develop into a Middle East competition as well. And then obviously the winners of that Middle East competition would go to Goodwood and compete in the global green power race in the UK.
And that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, there already such excitement and growth in interest to be able to take it internationally would be incredible for the students, I believe, Gareth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At the moment, it's fun just being able to challenge Dubai schools. But if you could scale that up and actually race schools from other parts of the region and potentially internationally, that would only draw more students in, and it adds to the value of the competition as well.
Indeed.
And a community, I suppose. I mean, coming from your background, I imagine that you've had, friendships and, personal, professional relationships. I imagine this can do that for the age group that we're working with, that they can have conversations and friendships outside of their school if they're participating in wider activities. Would you think that is something that Green Power can also bring to the table?
Yes, absolutely. It's great community building, and we've actually seen a lot of organic growth from schools um, onboarding. That it's friends from across schools. They're saying, "Oh, we're competing in Green Power." The kids in other schools are getting to hear about it, promoting it to their teachers and principals, and ultimately onboarding their own school. So that's fantastic to see as well.
I think so much works like that, doesn't it? Where you can actually see something successfully working and you think, well, we should be able to offer that enrichment within our own education environment. On a personal level, what does it mean to both of you to be involved in a program that really is impacting the next generation coming into the motorsport industry, into karting, or just a love of racing?
I think for me personally, I don't have kids of my own, which I probably would have funded in a motorsports career if I had. So it's giving back and giving to the kids what I feel is important to just highlight the opportunities to them at a young age. I was, I got him first involved in motorsports probably around the age of 9, 10. Realized I wasn't going to be a Formula One racing driver at the age of probably 15, which was way too late anyway. You need to start way before 7 years old to get into Formula One, right? So um, I think for me it was more about just giving that opportunity to the kids, to just highlight what the opportunities are in terms of motorsports, and not just being a racing driver, but all the other elements that come across.
And the experiences
Yeah,
that build up,
absolutely.
within life. And for you, I mean, being part again after a gap, Gareth, of working with Green Power and then finding it again, what does that mean to you as an educator?
Oh, I mean, it's brilliant. As Ryan said, it's our duty as teachers to give opportunities to the students, and we're spoilt for choice out in the UAE. And motorsport is very central, particularly with Abu Dhabi, with
Mm,
the F1 race that we
absolutely.
have there. So to have this opportunity, I'm very passionate about STEM, but actually finding projects linked to STEM that have value and aren't gimmicks, as you've mentioned before, that can be quite tricky.
Mm.
And this is one of those projects that I think has longevity, and has so much value. So being able to, after missing it from being in the UK, being able to get involved again in the UAE is brilliant. And it's exciting times we're here at the very beginning of this project, so it's quite exciting to see now how it's going to grow over the next few years.
And I think absolutely, I mean, it will be one to watch with interest, but already having had a couple of seasons, if that's what we're calling them, or a couple of years, what's been one of those real standout, rewarding moments that you can think about within the project so far?
I mean, for me, it's the race day and seeing all the kids come together, and they're all so enthusiastic, beaming with joy, and the excitement on race day is just phenomenal. Um, and obviously the participation throughout the race. And just to point out that the race is not about who finishes the race in the quickest time. It's all about sustainability.
Hmm.
So it does educate them on range anxiety, which I know is very prevalent for EV owners at the moment. We give them two batteries for a 90-minute race,
Okay.
and it's who can finish the race in that 90 minutes with the battery power. So if you go as fast as you can for the beginning of the race, you're only going to last 60 minutes and you won't finish the race. So it's all about how you drive, the aerodynamics on the car as well. So really does bring together lots of elements. But for me, the joy is seeing those kids stood on the podium at the end of the race. It's really fantastic.
Amazing. It sounds incredible. For you, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, working weekly with the students is brilliant. Seeing it coming from essentially a kit through to a finished vehicle, so that transition is amazing to see. But the race day is where it all comes alive. Parents are there as well. And then you start finding out that parents have histories in motorsports, and they're bringing their passion into it as well. You have the students with the race day, and as Ryan said, it's about that endurance element of it. So seeing them having to plan strategies, having to make repairs. In our first year last year, we had a big crash in, I think, maybe the sixth lap. So the students had to repair an entire rear axle on our vehicle, and suddenly it's call to arms. They all get involved like ants over this vehicle. It's amazing seeing them just getting stuck together, and me not leading that. That's down to them. So, I'm able just to stand back at that point and watch them show all the skills that we've developed over the year. So it's amazing.
And you just think how incredible those transferable skills for life
Mhm.
and a memory for life. There's no way that you think, fast forward 30 years, that somebody involved in an experience like that or a day like that would not remember it. It's really one of those embedded skills.
Yeah.
So I suppose, what do we do or what do we say to a principal or a head of technology or innovation that wants to get involved for 26, 27? Where do we go? How do we do it?
So we do send out surveys to all of the schools annually to gauge the interest from the schools. We do in that survey request them to provide some information about the school and their vision and how they would like to implement it in the school. So it's important that we have that synergy with the school as well, and we're not just allowing any school to on board. They need to understand the program, they need to be committed to doing it, and see the value for the kids in the longer term. Yes, it is a commercial outlay for the school to onboard in the first year, but the kit can be used for as many years
Okay.
and recycled, as long as the kids and the teachers look after it. Pack it, disassemble it, pack it away at the end of the year, and then hand it over to the next year of school kids.
And so, in terms of if I was a school lead and I wanted to definitely be part of this for the next academic year, the first stage would be reaching out to pole position to initiate
Yes.
that conversation.
Yeah, we do have a website locally for Greenpower Middle East, so it's greenpowerme.net. But you can also reach out to us at pole position, and we can provide you with all the information and access to the program.
And I suppose, is there a cutoff? I mean, is there a date that we need to think we must get that outreach done by then?
So, as I said, we try to do an outreach before the summer so that we can get as many kits brought into the country, saving on logistics by using sea freight. However, it's always a challenge because the schools are coming to the end of the year. They're not really thinking about the next year. So, look, we do have schools that onboard in September, October, November. And okay, it's a little bit of a challenge on the logistics, but providing that school can have some flexibility to implement it within the school. As I said, they could do it the first year within a month intensively, and then the next year they could change it so that they could do an hour every week.
And race day tends to be when?
So the last 2 years it has been coincidentally on the 4th of May. The last 2 years, it has proved to be a little bit hot, but we have moved the race timing to afternoon, early evening.
Okay.
So it's the heat has petered off. This year we're aiming to have the final race on the 11th of April at
Okay.
Yas Marina Kart Zone. We've had a lot of support from Yas Marina. I know Gareth School has had support from Yas Marina. They do a fantastic job in their own STEM learning projects, but that's the date we're aiming for this year.
Okay, so still more than enough time for people to
Absolutely.
have those conversations, get involved. So, in terms of obviously this being something based around schools and education, but thinking of the wider community, how can companies, corporations, government entities, how can they get involved in the project?
So yeah, we're actively seeking commercial partners to support in terms of sponsorship, whether they sponsor an individual school. We've even had fathers who have got businesses that fund schools with the kits because they can see the value. And we obviously provide that integration of how kids can then learn from those entities that are involved with the program. For example, we've had companies like Agreco sponsor it in the past. where we then take kids to Agreco. They learn about Agreco, what they do as a business, and sustainability things that they do as well. But obviously for Agreco, it's a great CSR pillar, and it's giving back to the community as well. So we are having some great conversations with some commercial partners at the moment. But if there's anybody interested in some serious CSR benefits to give back to the community, then we're welcome to having conversations.
A brilliant way of outreach, 100%, and a whole new generation to sort of highlight your product to.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah.
Gareth, if we were doing that sort of 1 minute assembly pitch to a whole bunch of students that had never heard of Greenpower or the opportunities that it could offer, how would you get that sort of call to arms going?
Um, Weirdly, it doesn't really need a pitch. Once students see what is possible, and you just make it clear that this is not just for people who want to drive a car, that's a fun element of it. But as long as you get that message across that it's not just for people to come and drive a go-kart, okay? Once they realize it's got so many connections to other subject areas, and they can see that there's an end result and they understand the project, students will be chewing your hands off to get involved with it. It's an easy sell. It's not something that I'm scrabbling around with at school trying to get people to participate in. It's an easy sell. And once you've done the first season, then that will naturally just start to increase every single year. You will never struggle to get students involved.
And such a great concept that the kit can be reused. It, really does
Absolutely.
genuinely tick that sustainability box and, supports that investment in the project for the long term, definitely. Thank you both for speaking with me today. Well, for one, am marking the calendar for the race day. I will definitely be there. And, as a previous school principal, you just can't see a negative to this at the end of the day. There is nothing but positives, not just for that team, but for the staff and for the community at large. It's just such an incredible initiative.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We would welcome any schools that are interested to reach out, and we'll share some information and try and get you onboarded for next year.
And good luck to the British School of Al Khubairat in the race.
Thank you very much.